As we approached the castle, the great gatehouse door rolled open to admit us, and the soldiers arming our trebuchets called out in greeting. The carriage driver touched the horses' flanks with his whip as we clattered through two more heavy iron gates before we came to a rough halt in the courtyard. As he helped me out of the carriage, Otto glanced pointedly at the smears of mud on my ruined dress. "I won't let the king see me like this," I said. "Please just don't tell him what I did." Otto gave me the most minuscule of bows. He would keep the secret of how I walked among the beasts. "But you must tell him of the plague," I said. "Tell him about the bells. Tell him that they need us." At this, Otto stiffened and looked away. "What? Will you not speak of it?" "The king has greater concerns," Otto said. "Ares and his... Surely he cares that the villagers are dying. And we may grow sick too, Otto. I doubt rank or stature matters to the seep. Do you? All our castle's defenses may not keep it outside." Otto's face was grim. He inhaled slowly. "I will speak to him, your highness." And then he stalked away. I hurried, unseen, to my bedchamber, where I bathed quickly and then dressed myself. When did that ever happen? In an old blue satin gown. I didn't bother to brush my hair or pin a brooch to my breast. Instead, I hurried to where I knew Raphael would be, if he was even still alive. I had asked Jeanette to look in on the manservant from this morning, but I would tend to the brave, stupid village boy myself. Beneath the scullery, a set of steep, curving stairs wound down into darkness, and a thick oaken door marked the entrance to the dungeon. This was forbidden territory for a princess, a dank world of vermin, human and otherwise. And yet here I was pounding to be let in. My candle flickered and guttered in the chill air. Eventually the door creaked open and a grotesque, misshapen man peered out. This was Gattis, the keeper of the dungeon, who had not seen the light of day for decades. His bloodshot eyes, straining out of waxy, cadaverous sockets, looked as though they were trying to crawl out of his skull. "What brings a pretty flower like you underground to the worms?" he rasped. A gnarled, creeping finger approached my cheek but stopped an inch away. His smile was ghastly. I did not flinch. "Let me in," I said. He backed away, bowing mockingly. "Welcome to my kingdom." I stepped past him into the dungeon and immediately clapped my hand over my mouth and nose. The village smelled like death, but the dungeon smelled like shit and despair. "Where is the boy who was brought in this afternoon?" I demanded. My eyes had begun to water, and Gattis noticed this, cackled drunkenly. "Below, your majesty." Then he pointed not to one of the dank, rat-infested cells, but to an iron grill covering a small opening in the floor. I crouched down and put my face to the bars. Raphael was barely visible in the stinking darkness. His face was bruised, and one eye was swollen shut. Was it blood or filth on his arms? I couldn't tell. The cell was so small that he could hardly even lie down. "Raphael," I called, "can you hear me?" He moaned and tried to turn over. He seemed only half conscious. I stood up, my head spinning from the horror of it. "Release him," I said. Gattis laughed as if I'd made a joke. "No, princess. Not even for you." I commanded, but he just blinked his bulging eyes at me. "His life is not yours to save." "My father." "When your father orders me directly, I'll obey him," Gattis said. "And until then, I'll keep the little rotter comfortable here. For I am the king of rats and robbers, and the sovereign of mice and murderers." He raised his hogskin of wine and took a long gulp of it. Then he threw it to the ground and wiped his cankered lips. "To your health, your highness," he sang, then belched loudly. "Remember, everyone gets what they deserve." I should have known it would be impossible to reason with a torturer. Saying nothing more, I left Gattis in his stinking subterranean kingdom and went to find my father. He was pacing the hall of flat queens, and I could tell by the set of his shoulders that his mood was grim, and his thoughts preoccupied with the coming battle. Ares had never before concerned himself with our southern lands, but he had grown restless, pushing across the Dorel Mountains as summer waned seeking conquest in realms close to ours. If the whispers were true, he had plundered the city of Sed but a week's ride away, and slaughtered all its inhabitants, man, woman, and child. As his army pulled out, already fixated on the next battle, the last line of soldiers had set the city's ruin on fire. But with my father, Ares would finally meet his match. "Father," I said, touching his arm, "I must ask you for something." He turned around. He saw my old dress and my loose hair, and his nose wrinkled ever so slightly. No doubt he could smell the rank of dungeon on me. "Sophia," he said, "why do—" "Father, please. I know you have much on your mind, but you must release that villager," I interrupted. "The boy named Raphael." He let out a bark of surprise. "I will not. The beast committed treason." He spoke in justified anger. "I don't care. He struck you, and that is unpardonable. He'll rot underground like the corpse he should be." "But I was the one hit, and I forgive him. He had a point, Father. We don't understand what it's like to be poor and hungry." "Nor should we," he said angrily. "We are not beasts." "I want him set free." My father's eyes went cold, and when he spoke, his voice held a whisper of a threat. "Ask for it your next birthday," he said, and then he turned his back to me. So he blamed me for my last wish. Well, so did I. When our knights put away their swords, the word had spread that King Leonidas had become weak, his soldiers fat and lazy, his castle and lands were ripe for plunder. And now I knew what I did not understand then, that when my father gave me what I asked for, our fate was sealed. Ares' impending attack was entirely my fault. The knowledge of my mistake nearly crushed me, but even if I could not prevent the impending battle, I could stop this one cruelty tonight. I could save this poor boy from Gaddis' hell. "Father, I beg—" "No more talk," he shouted. "Your king commands it." I honestly thought he might strike me, but I stood my ground. There was more that I had to say. "Did Otto tell you of the seep?" I asked. "Did he tell you that we have more than Ares to fear? We must send medicine to the village, and food. The villagers are dying, Father. They need our help." My father said nothing. His face was like stone. He pushed me away down the corridor. "Go," he said. "Leave me alone." For another second I stood there, bereft, as my father waited for me to obey him the way I always had. It seemed, somehow, like we were already under siege. "Go," he shouted again. And so, with the painted eyes of my mother gazing placidly down on us both, I did as he commanded.